Scientific Beginnings 1.4 Describe major early influences on the scientific study of development. Scientific study of human development dates back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Early observations of human change were soon followed by improved methods and theories. Each advance contributed to the firm foundations on which the field rests today. Darwin, forefather of scientific child study. British naturalist Charles Darwin observed the infinite variation among plant and animal species. He also saw that within a species no two individuals are exactly alike. From these observations, he constructed his famous theory on evolution. The theory emphasizes the four related principles: natural selection and survival of the fittest. Darwin explained that certain species survive in particular environments because they have characteristics that fit with or are adapted to their surroundings. Other species die off because they are less well suited to their environments. Individuals within a species who best meet the environment's survival requirements live long enough to reproduce and pass their more beneficial characteristics to future generations. Darwin's emphasis on the adapted value of physical characteristics and behavior found its way into more important developmental theories. During his explorations, Darwin discovered that early prenatal growth is strikingly similar in many species. Other scientists concluded from Darwin's observations that the development of the human child follows the same general plan as the evolution of the human species. Although this belief eventually proved inaccurate, efforts to chart parallels between child growth and human evolution prompted researchers to make careful observations of all aspects of children's behavior. Out of these first attempts to document an idea about development, scientific child study was born. The normative period. G. Stanley Hall, one of the most influential American psychologists of the early 20th century, is generally regarded as the founder of child study movement. He also foreshadowed lifespan research by writing one of the few books on his time on aging. Inspired by Darwin's work, Hall and his well-known student Arnold Gesell devised theories based on evolutionary ideas. They regarded development as a maturational process, a genetically determined series of events that unfold automatically, much like a flower. Hall and Gesell are remembered less for their one-sided theories than for their intensive efforts to describe all aspects of development. They launched the normative approach, in which measures of behavior are taken on large numbers of individuals and age-related averages are computed to represent typical development. Using this procedure, Hall constructed elaborate questionnaires asking children of different ages almost everything they could tell about themselves: interests, fears, imaginary playmates, dreams, friendships, everyday knowledge, and more. Similarly, through careful observations and parent interviews, Gesell collected detailed normative information on the motor achievements, social behaviors, and personality characteristics of infants and children. Gesell was also among the first to make knowledge about child development meaningful to parents by informing them of what to expect at each age. If, as he believed, the timetable of development is the product of millions of years of evolution, then children are naturally knowledgeable about their needs. His child-rearing advice recommended sensitivity to children's cues. Along with Benjamin Spock's Baby and Child Care, Gesell's books became a central part of rapidly expanding child development literature for parents. The mental testing movement. While Hall and Gesell were developing their theories and methods in the United States, French psychologist Alfred Binet was also taking a normative approach to child development, but for a different reason. In the early 1900s, Binet and his colleague Theodore Simon were asked by Paris school officials to find a way to identify children with learning problems who needed to be placed in special classes. To address these practical educational concerns, Binet and Simon constructed the first successful intelligence test. In 1916, at Stanford University, Binet's test was adapted for use with English-speaking children. Since then, the English version has been known as the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale. Besides providing a score that could successfully predict school achievement, the Binet test sparked tremendous interest in individual differences in development. Comparisons of the scores of people who vary in gender, ethnicity, birth order, family background, and other characteristics became a major focus of research. An intelligence test moved quickly to the forefront of the nature-nurture controversy. Extra reading. Cultural influences. The baby boomers reshaped the life course. From 1946 to 1964, 92% of all American women of childbearing age gave birth, averaging almost 4 children each, a new baby every 8 seconds. This splurge of births, which extended for nearly 2 decades, yielded a unique generation often credited with changing the world. Today, the baby boomers number 74 million adults, about 23% of the US population. Most are middle-aged, with the oldest having entered late adulthood. Several interrelated factors sparked the post-World War II baby boom. Many people who had postponed marriage and parenthood throughout the Great Depression of the 1930s started families in the 1940s. Once the economy had improved, with the end of World War II, returning GIs also began to have children. As these two cohorts focused on childbearing, they gave birth to babies who otherwise would have been spaced out over 10 to 15 years. And as economic prosperity accelerated in the 1950s, making larger families affordable, more people married at younger age and had several children closely spaced, which led the baby boom to persist into the 1960s. Finally, after a war, the desire to make babies generally strengthens. Besides replacing massive population loss, new births signify hope that human life will endure. Compared with their counterparts in the previous generation, many more young baby boomers were economically privileged. They were also the recipients of deep emotional investment from their parents, who, having undergone the deprivations of depression and war, often ranked children as the most enduring benefit of their adult lives. These factors may have engendered optimism, confidence, even a sense of entitlement. At the same time, their huge numbers, evident in overflowing school classrooms, may have sparked an intense struggle for individual recognition. By the time the boomers reached early adulthood, this set of traits led critics to label them a narcissistic, indulged me generation. From the mid-1960s to the early 1970s, the leading-edge baby boomers born in the late 1940s and early 1950s entered colleges and universities in record numbers, in part because of draft deferments offered to students during the Vietnam War. The boomers became better educated than any previous generation. This cohort, self-focused, socially aware, and in search of distinction, broke away from their parents' family and marriage-centered lifestyles. Starting in the mid-60s, marriage rates declined, age of first marriage rose, and divorce rates increased. And the baby boomers responded to the turbulence of those times, the assassination of President Kennedy in 1963, the Vietnam War, and growing racial tensions by mobilizing around the anti-war, civil rights, and women's movements, yielding a generation of student activists. By the time the trailing-edge boomers, born in the late 1950s and early 1960s, came of age, these movements had left an enduring mark. Even as they turned toward family life and career development, the boomers continued to search for personal meaning, self-expression, and social responsibility. By midlife, the generation had produced an unusually large number of socially concerned writers, teachers, filmmakers, labor and community organizers, as well as innovative musicians and artists. And a multitude of ordinary citizens worked to advance social causes. As baby boom women entered the labor market and struggled for career advancement and equal pay, their self-confidence grew and they paved the way for the next generation. On average, younger women attained this same level of self-confidence at a much earlier age. And as baby boom activists pressed for gender and racial equality, they influenced national policy. The 1960s saw laws passed that banned discrimination in employment practices, in racial access to public accommodations, and in sale or rental of housing. By the 1970s, progress in civil rights served as the springboard for the gay and lesbian rights movement. The baby boomers are healthier, better educated, and financially better off than any previous mid- or late-life cohort. Their sense of self-empowerment and innovativeness has energized efforts to increase the personal meaningfulness of their work lives and to deepen their lifelong engagement with social causes. Yet another concern of baby boom midlifers is an intense desire to control the physical changes of aging. Far more than their predecessors, they resist growing old, as indicated by their interest in a wide array of anti-aging products and procedures, from cosmetics to Botox to plastic surgery, that are now a multi-billion-dollar U.S. industry. Nevertheless, it is important to note that the baby boomers, though advantaged as a generation, are diverse in health status and sense of control over their lives. Those higher in education and income are considerably better off, and because retirement savings were heavily hit by the economic recession of 2007 to 2009, and pension plans with guaranteed fixed benefits had declined over the boomers' employment years, many are working longer than they had planned. What lies ahead as each year millions of members of this gigantic population bulge transition into late adulthood? Most analysts focus on the societal burdens such as rising social security and healthcare costs. At the same time, aging boomers have more relevant experience in caring about their world and more years left to do so than any previous cohort of older adults. Rather than slowing down in their 60s and 70s, many remain immersed in their careers, start new businesses, or pursue challenging volunteer and service roles. As the boomers cast aside traditional retirement, they are redefining the last third of life as a time of continued engagement, meaning, and contributions to society.